It's Monday, May 29, 2023. It's a beautiful morning. I'm out a bit earlier than I often am because I'm trying to get a good start on this project. I've got all my pallets loaded. You can't even see me now. Heading out to the dipper. It's a 2-hour drive out there. 2 hours back, of course. It doesn't change. And so I want to get out there a decent hour. There's a few pallets and covers that I want them to dip while I wait. A little bit of equipment to load up that I'm buying from them, and then come back. And hopefully I won't be back too late. Usually back 4 o'clock or so. So that's all to report for this. Just got the diesel warming up, and we'll be off here pretty quick. Got these 4 across on here. Well, I made it back. It's about 2 hours each way. I had to juggle my load a little bit. The plastic wrap kind of blew off. Well, it's Tuesday morning, May 30, 2023. And I'm just getting back to gonna unload the trailer. I was pretty tired after my trip, and I did a bunch of business in the house. Afterward, it was hot. I was out in the wind all day, and it was so hot. Once I get in the air-conditioned house, it's really hard to tear myself away. So I have to unload the trailer. There's a bunch of stuff in the truck too. I need to get. So I got my little orange buddy, and I got a pallet. I've got to take this pallet was in a tall stack when I left, but I tore it down and stacked it differently. It was not riding exactly right. It was going to fall apart. And the thing about these 6s, when you have 10 frame boxes like this, inside here you can't see. There's a box on end inside here, so you get more on there, and to me it's a little more stable. Can't really come apart as easily, and these don't. They just sit one on top of another. So if one starts to slide off or something, you got a problem. So anyway, safety first. Couple hours down a bumpy highway. It was mostly pretty good. The highway's pretty good, but sometimes it gets kind of rough. And then, so that's what I'm going to be doing. I don't have my tripod with me. It's way out in the apiary. So sorry. I don't know if I'll get any action shots of this or not. But it's pretty boring stuff, just taking things off the trailer and putting them on a pallet. And so I'm going to do some of that now. So that's not really a sight you want to see. It's not as bad as it might look. There's nothing wrong with the tractor. But I've seen I've heard a clicking sound from this front wheel. And there was some of this plastic wrap stuck in here. There still is. And it's no good for the bearing. But I can't get any more of it out without taking it apart. It doesn't hurt the bearing as much as it can compromise the seal. I guess I can get more out. But it's not leaking, so it hasn't compromised the seal yet. And it's been in there since last summer. There's some more. But the clicking, that wasn't the clicking sound at all. The clicking sound, and I've started working on this already, is that the rim is cracked. there's a good crack around the top of every one of these lug bolt holes. So I've had to dig out the little welder, a little MIG welder. It's not very powerful, but I'm sure it's going to be enough for this job. I have another rim, but it's quicker and easier for me to weld this than it is for me to be able to change that tire over. I have to go to town for that. And I'll tell you about something else. You can't really see it, but behind this plate is a fuel pump for the tractor. Now, there's two fuel pumps. There's a high pressure injector pump on the engine in here, and this is called a lift pump. This, what you see, is a filter, and what I did was I installed that filter a couple of years ago. It has a water separator, and it's a better filter, much more accessible too to change. And when I installed that, I relocated the fuel pump, the lift pump, from way under the tractor just to behind that plate. This is what the lift pump looks like. They're pretty simple, a little diaphragm thing, click, 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 and they're about 25 bucks, no big deal. But I decided, you know, I'm going to relocate this. I'll just buy a new one. The tractor's a few years old. I'll buy a new one, put it on there. I never did take the old one off. It sat under the tractor the whole time. But this fuel pump gave out the other day. So the only thing drawing fuel was the injector pump, and the tractor would hardly run because it didn't get enough fuel. So I crawled under the tractor, took the original fuel pump off, relocated it back into here, and it works great. So that was a messy pain in the butt. And then today is this. This tractor's getting old. This tractor is 12 and a half years old now. I've had it 12 and a half years. I work it hard. I work at heavy lifting, etc. And it has, let's see how many hours it has on it. It has over 1,700 hours on it. And I bought it brand new. So that 1,700 hours is my seat in its seat. And yeah, so getting the age. I actually, when I did that fuel pump, I just put a brand new battery in it. The old battery wasn't toast, but it was kind of getting, if you had to crank it at all for any length of time, it would wear down. So I put the new one in, and then I realized how bad the old battery was. The new one just spins over like there's nothing there. So anyway, I gotta weld this up. I do some welding. I've taken my grinder and taken the paint and the rust off of there, and I'm going to try to put a little bead on each side. This is the bolt side, so I've got a little more leeway here, but not much still. This side, the crack is right at the top of where the hub runs in here, so I can weld that, but I'll probably end up grinding it smooth again because the hub runs flat. You can see the line where the hub is. So here goes. Let's do some welding. Hopefully I don't set the wood shop on fire. Welding all this sawdust and everything around. So here's the result. It's a difficult place to weld. It's actually not that bad. It's a difficult place to get that ground electrode. I had to stick it in here and ground it on one of the places I'd cleaned off. I don't want to grind a bunch of paint off this just to ground it. So I will never pretend, and I will never make any assertion that I'm a great welder. That actually worked out pretty good though. It's very hot, so I want to touch it. Yeah, I don't often get to weld things on high power in my welder. It's usually thin bodywork and whatnot. So high power is a little bit easier. You're not burning through as easily. So anyway, I'm going to take my grinder, and I have to smooth off this side for sure, because of where that hub sits, and you can just see the end of the line of it here, where that hub contacts the rim. So here I go for that part. Okay, some grinding done. I don't know if I hit all the cracks, but I think I'll probably take this to the tire shop and have one of my other rims mounted with this tire. It's an excellent tire, but the rim's just not up to the kind of weight that I carry. So I actually have a can of Kubota orange on my shelf, so we'll just give it a little spritz of that. I'm not really that concerned about the looks, but it'll just help protect it from rusting. This is the outside, a little harder to grind because you can't see around where the lug bolts go. It goes up, it's flanged up, so I can't just grind it flat, and grinding down a hole like this is hard. That'll do it. Okay, I'll put it back on the tractor. I have to check the other side now. All right, it's on there, tightened down. I may never have to address it again. I don't know, we'll see. Keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the other one too. However, at this point, it looks pretty good from this vantage point. And I'll admit, you know, I follow the Kubota forums pretty good, and it's not the first time I've seen that. I don't know that it's terribly common, and you got to understand that on forums, you're dealing with a pretty small subset of owners of any equipment that you might be interested in. You know, those who are on, you know, Facebook, they're mostly Facebook groups, and those who bother to watch the particular groups, whether you're interested in tractors, or I follow one for my little microphone system here to troubleshoot. And often you find posts on there are troubles, like, oh, I had a problem with this, I had a problem with that. People just looking for help. So it doesn't mean that there's necessarily, you know, a widespread problem with something, but you know, you can see what other people are dealing with, and it's not the first time that I've seen something like this on the forums, and then it happened to me, so I was really not surprised at all. This little tractor's been fantastic. I really love that I can push the front end up with the loader. Just don't get under it. You take a wheel off, but don't get under it. And so now I have to resume unloading my trailer here. Okay, I've got the trailer uncoupled, and I think there's, I don't remember what I bought, 1,000 frames, 1,200 frames. I know there's some that are there that aren't on the skid, but I think that's mostly, I think there's 400 top, or 200 top bars, 200 bottom bars, and I think there's 1,000 frames on here besides. I don't know if I can lift it, but if you've been watching my videos, you know I'm going to try. It's pretty heavy, but, and I got to put it in four-wheel drive to back up. The back wheels don't have much weight on them. I don't know if I can really go far. So to be honest, I can't handle that kind of thing anyway, even if I get it off the truck. So I'm going to hand bomb this off onto smaller skids, probably 2, maybe 3 of these. I don't want too many on there, and I like to have like complete sets on here. So what I've done in the past is I've made an entire skid of bottom bars, and then I'll make an entire skid of top bars, and an entire skid of you know, end bars. That's a pain because now I have to go and find 3 skids in order to build frames. So I'm gonna put, you know, maybe 400 I think on here, I think is what I usually get, and we'll go from there. Well, it's not elegant, but that's 400, seems to fit really nice. It's not that heavy, and that'll store well. The problem is I can't stack, right? It's not flat on the top, so I can't put anything on top. I just can't work out a method that stacks real nice like that. So regardless, we'll keep going with that. Okay, the truck's empty, and that's just some equipment for some hobbyists. I try to help people when I go out to the manufacturer, save them a couple of bucks and pick up some things. So the frame tally is 1,000 complete frames, but I've also got 300 extra top bars, 300 extra bottom bars. I ended up with extra end bars here just because when I make mini frames, things get all out of whack. I'll either build the bottom bars from scratch and then use up my end bars, so then I have to buy more, or have to buy more end bars, or I'll use up the bottom bars and modify them, you know, and then end up needing more. I'm not sure what happened with the top bars. Regardless, so there's 1,000 complete sets and 300 tops and 300 bottoms. So I got to get this put away. I think I just put it in the honey house. There's room in there now for a while because I took all those pallets out. So I sort this around again. It's Tuesday, May 30, 2023. And it's a hot day too. I just looked at the official temperature. It said 26°, and I don't think it's 26°C out here. Maybe it is air temperature, but that sun feels like a blast furnace. Very, very hot. I think it's going to reach the melting point of Canadians soon. And Canadians melt kind of like beeswax, more like beeswax than ice. See, ice as it reaches, it goes up to 0. It'll kind of hold there until it just reaches above 0, and then it melts right away. Beeswax, it just gets softer and softer until eventually it just sort of melts. But then that's kind of how Canadians melt. We just get softer and softer until we just can't do anything anymore. And I think that temperature, you know, the actual melting point is about 38°C, between 38 and 40°C, I think. So we're pretty soft when it gets to 32, 34°C. It's really hot. So you see this beautiful equipment behind me? So this is the stuff that I built the lids and the pallets, and I bought the boxes. I picked those up yesterday. I had them dipped yesterday and brought them home. I just put that all together, and it's such a beautiful sight right there. I haven't built equipment for myself in a few years. Building for other people the whole time, which I'm thankful for. But you know, I haven't seen a lineup like this for a while in my apiary. I kind of look at this and I call that hopes and dreams. Right? A bunch of empty boxes, a bunch of brand new empty boxes. So that's hopes and dreams, and hopefully that'll translate into the apiary here and kickstart things again, since of course, you know, things have not really been going that good. It's not time yet for me to check on my latest queens, but I can check on the queens that I put in there, oh, I don't know, 3 weeks ago at least, and see how they're doing. Of course, all of those splits were fairly weak, so they've got a lot of buildup to do, and then those will actually go into this equipment once they're ready. And there's a couple colonies here I want to check on. I'm wearing this tiny veil. It's all right. It's flexible though, and it kind of gets so that it can touch your nose. My wife wears this veil, and it's a little bit small for me, but my nice Man Lake Clearview veil, I took it to a buddy's place to pick up some nukes, and it's still in the truck, so it's not out here. And so I grabbed my wife's veil for this. So yeah, gonna check on some of these, and hopefully everything is looking good. I don't want any swarming, boy, I can't afford any swarming. I have very few colonies that are doing well, and I can't let them hit the trees. That would just be disastrous. My wife and I worked out here for a while on Saturday. I had to go and pick up those nukes on Saturday, but before I had to leave, we worked out here, and you see these doubles. You maybe can't tell this is a double. That's a 10 frame double, and there's a few more down this way. I can't see the screen, so I think that's one, and there's 3 more down there. There's a red box down there you can see. And so what that is that's some of my 2022 Carpathian queens. There's only one that's actually not one of those. One of them is my queen. And they were in the 6 frame boxes over the winter. They grew up and they were just pounding the brood and getting so strong. I had actually put these, there's some 6 frame boxes sitting around here. So I had actually put a second on those as 6 frame. So they were in 12 and they just blew that right full of brood. And so we pulled those out, get all that brood into that bottom box. I put a nice fresh box of honeycomb on top of that. So it's nice and fresh and ready to go. And then I expect her to be up in there. In my experience, it usually takes them 2 days or so to clean that honeycomb. So it's appropriate for laying in. So that's what that would be Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So she probably start laying in there either yesterday or today. So these are really booming and I have to watch those. I don't want them to hit the trees. So I need to start pulling brood out of these and allocating it elsewhere. Cell builder would be a really good idea. I'm not quite ready to go with that. So we have to decide exactly what we're going to do with those. So the things I can do, I do want to check those to see how the egg laying is going in the second box. There was literally out of 10 frames, so there was 2 6 frame boxes. Out of 10 frames, there was 8 to 10 frames of brood in those boxes, in those hives. So there was an entire bottom box of brood for the most part in all of these 5 that we did. Yeah, that's a lot of brood. So they're going to explode over, if you see capped cells, that cell is going to be emerged in 12 days or less. Like it might emerge in 1 day. And a lot of it does because it's a continuous laying process. It's not a batch system. But you can bet that if they capped that cell today or yesterday, then in 12 days, that cell is going to be empty and laid in again. So they are going to really blow up, and I need to be careful about that. So we'll look in some of those. I want to look in some of these Konas, and I've got a Saskatraz that I made up a couple of weeks ago. See how they're laying. You can see this one sitting on top here. That one is dead. That one, I don't think it was dead. What happened was I tried to introduce an older queen, and she died in the cage. So I just put that brood in another nuke, and so that's just a box of comb. So that's not necessarily such bad news. The one that's under it, however, that one died, so it's dead out, has to be taken away. Yeah, so there's lots of that kind of thing to do. And there's a couple other special hives over here I want to take a look at, and I'll show you those first because then I can kind of explain what's going on here as we go. So I didn't even start my smoker. I'm just too lazy. They finished their pail, their jar, I should say. Now, I had jars on these, so that's a clue as to what's going on here. And if you haven't been keeping up with Saga, I've had a difficult spring, and I believe the root of the problem in my difficulties is an extremely high nosema level. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to refresh my colonies, and so I've been doing things like culling all of the old comb, putting in fresh honeycomb, as I mentioned earlier with those other nukes that we transferred. Just something that's clean, and that's been sitting in the sun. That's awful hot. So I've been trying things like that, and when I'll take a box of comb back to the honey house and I'll render off the frames. I'll scorch the box with my torch just to freshen it up and kill anything nasty on there. So my friend James McNally out west talking to him one night, and he said, you know, this is something that I have done in the past. And he's actually been keeping bees longer than I have. He was keeping bees at a hobbyist level, so I think it's like 15, 20 colonies for a number of years until last year he decided to ramp that up. So he's actually been keeping bees longer than I have, and I can't remember how long. Maybe it's like 10 years, 10 or 15 years. So he said, you know, I had something like that go on in my apiary one year. I believe he said he's running about 15 colonies. I can't touch that. That's so hot. Holy smokes, that's hot. And he said, you know, something I did was, he said, I culled everything out of the colonies and I shook the bees and the queen onto brand new fresh comb, fed them a patty, fed them some syrup. And he said, you would be amazed how well those bees took off. And basically, you can think about that as he shook a package into drawn comb, right? So it's exactly what he did. He had a bunch of bees, and he had a laying queen, and a little better than a package because it's not a caged queen, so she's going to lay right away, and onto drawn comb. And so that's what I did. I actually changed the boxes. I didn't change the lids. I changed the boxes to boxes that I had scorched. I took the old boxes off, set them aside, put a brand new box, put some brand new honeycomb in there, you know, 4 or 5 frames, and I shook all of the bees into there. I found the queen, I placed the queen in there, put the rest of the 10 nice frame, drawn comb frames, honeycomb, and put a patty and then a jar of syrup. So they've each taken down a half-gallon jar now, and that was 2 weeks ago yesterday. Yesterday was Monday, so it was 2 weeks ago yesterday. These are both my grafted 2022 queens. This colony was stronger than that one, so it still is, as you can imagine. And what I plan to do here today, if possible, is if I can take a frame of capped brood that this colony doesn't have to feed. I don't want to put open brood because they're weaker. Is I'll take that capped brood, because we've got very nice weather here. The forecast is talking about nothing but very warm weather. I'm going to take that brood with no bees and place it in there. So then they get a population boost over the next 12 days. So let's look. Like I said, I didn't bring my smoker, so I might be paying for that. You'll have a ringside seat if things go poorly. Makes you work carefully, you know. I do some of the work without a veil even. Boy, you want to work carefully. So still got some Apiary on here. I'm actually going to throw these over here because I'll likely want to have both these open at one time. Okay, let's check. This comb, I said it was fresh honeycomb. Some of it actually had just a tiny bit of brood at one point. This one actually had some pollen in it, so I chose it. But I'm confident that it's still nice, clean comb. I can feel that they've been putting that dandelion nectar in there, as they have in this one, quite a bit. And, you know, the jar too. But there's definitely a dandelion flow. Dandelions just started to seed today. So I'm not sure if we're going to get another round. Eggs. So there's eggs all through here. That's really nice. And there's nectar on that side, which is kind of weird. But I guess they're kind of plugging it out, so she has to find whatever she can find, or use whatever she can find. So here's where we start into the capped brood. She's got that laid all the way to here. All the way to here. So that's a really nice pattern. New brood comb. When you have new comb and you let them lay, boy, it ever looks nice. It's so bright yellow like that. Just beautiful. Lots of pollen in here. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that pollen is dandelion pollen, which is really not very nutritious. But it is what it is. That's what they have. They've had this patty the whole time, so they've been able to choose that if they prefer it. So this would be a good one to take. It's got a little tiny bit open brood on the bottom. No open brood on that side. So you see how few bees there are on there. A hot day like this, the bees leave. They can't keep the brood cool enough, and so they don't wander around on the brood. They don't want to make it too hot. Lots of pollen on that one. Wouldn't be a bad one to take. Ow! Oh, she stung me right in the end of the finger. Holy smokes. Tell you, that's a place to get stung. There's a lot of nerves there. Burns. That's a good one to take there too. It's almost like they're packing it out though. It's almost like she's slowing down. Maybe they need a second box or something. She's laid that up, but they've packed that out with nectar too. So there's just larvae in here. Oh, that hurts. Larvae all throughout here, but again, they've packed that out around the edges. I haven't seen the queen. You kind of feel the venom going up. It starts to hurt a little bit all the way up here. You just feel it going in the bloodstream. So that's just pollen and nectar. There's nothing else in that frame. I haven't seen the queen. I think I'm gonna take some. This is an empty frame here, so I think I'm gonna move that in next to the nest. Push that nectar farther out. And you see, I haven't given them a story frame. This is just try to get them moving as best as I can. Oh, yeah, there is the queen right there. So put her, you know what I'm going to do? And this is something, I actually saw my mentor do it on video the other day, and because he's giving me heck for doing it. Is put an empty frame in the middle of the nest, and you got to watch. You can only do that in really warm weather. So it's warm weather now, so I'm gonna do that. Yeah, so there's eggs on that one, and I'm gonna turn that around. That's just weird because there's nectar on the other side. They're really filling this up with nectar. So I'm going to put this between those eggs and the sealed brood. There is one I was going to take out. There wasn't there. That one's heavy. That one's not as heavy. So move that out. They've been done in that jar for quite a while now. I'll just stick that in there for now. Because now I'm going to choose my frame to move over. I think it was this one. Yeah, that's a nice one. I'm going to shake them off. And the things I'm worried about is, I don't want to move the queen, of course, but I know where the queen is. The queen's not over here. She's over here. But also, I don't want a bunch of foreign bees because they can threaten my queen in the other colony there. And things could turn poorly for them. Nice day, I can leave a brood frame out, and I don't have to worry about it chilling. It's probably a little too hot in the sun. I should put it in the shade. So you can see that this one is not nearly as far along. They are eating the patty. Take all the frames out that have nothing in them, and then I can choose to use those in the middle if I want. So this is pollen and nectar. So that certainly doesn't need to be right in the center. This colony is a lot smaller. And that brood frame will help them catch up a little. So she's got this laid here, but the rest of it's pollen and nectar. I wonder if she's actually doing okay. You know, she's got a nice patch going there and there too. But, yeah, this is good. This is good. Okay. I'll put this brood frame right in the middle there. It's a nice mature brood frame. So they should be emerging in the next few days. And put this strip back in the center here. Oh. Okay. So these are all sort of just empties. So they have little ground to make up. Okay, and this is the frame that I'll put back in that one. Seemed to me they were eating that patty, so I'll give it back to them. Okay, just going to put this over here, near the nest, but not in the nest. I'll put my Apiary back in. Another thing that doing this kind of a maneuver does is it gives your colony a brood break, a nice brood break. So that is an excellent mite control strategy. In fact, it's Wednesday, May 31, 2023. I'm actually out a little bit earlier than I often am. I just found myself sitting around enjoying my coffee and not doing anything productive, so I thought, might as well come outside and at least poke around. I was actually on my way to the bee yard. There's a few things that I really should have done yesterday that I kind of forgot I needed to do. There's some colonies we marked as strong that I want to look at again and consider putting seconds on. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Seconds on my colonies. So really happy that some of them are doing well enough to do that. And I didn't get very far, and I'm looking around at the yard thinking, wow, this place is sure looking like it needs a haircut. So I went and got the mower. And as usual, before I put the mower on, I want to do some service. I've been picking away at the build-up dirt and stuff here. There's grease points on here. I try and check the oil in that gearbox. I've never done that. I don't see any leakage, so that's always a good sign. But I need to check that if I can, just to confirm that there's actually oil in it. That's really expensive. That's probably 2/3 the price of this mower. And then, of course, these blades need sharpening. Here we go. So that's the cutting edge. She's not sharp at all. And I decided to do it this way. Just flip it up with the tractor. You have to be really careful with this kind of thing. It's best if you can put a post between the loader and the ground. However, I'm not really going to be under it per se. I'll be, reaching in here with my wrenches, but I'll keep my body back in case something happens. And the something that can happen with hydraulics is, because the whole system is put together with fittings and hoses and tubes and whatnot, any failure there, a fitting, a tube, a hose cracks, and it's always going to burst at the wrong time, the very worst time, and it'll burst at the very worst time when you're under it. So you never want to get under something that's supported by hydraulics alone. So I'm going to get my big wrench and get these things taken off of here. And again, my tripod's out in the apiary, so we'll show you the beekeeping today, but action shots for this are going to be kind of hard. So hope you'll forgive me for that. I do wish I had my tripod because I really want to show you this. First of all, required apparel is the eye protection. Ear protection, it's not really that loud. It can be a little bit piercing, but important thing is, here's the things that my dad taught me. You see the bevel on that? The bevel angle is a compromise, and it's a compromise between two things: how sharp it's going to be and how long it's going to stay sharp. The more acute the angle, meaning the more flat you cut that angle, the sharper you can make that cutting edge. But that means the cutting edge is very narrow for a longer period as it goes back. The more right angle, closer to right angle you make that cutting edge, the longer it's going to last, because you have more material behind your cutting edge, but you can't really get the cutting edge as sharp. I don't know exactly what angle this is, and you can tell that I've sharpened this a few times, but I don't worry about that. That's just the principle behind this. Now hopefully the edge is not too bashed up, because that really makes sharpening this more difficult, because you have to take a lot more material off to get past that damage. So it's better to keep the thing sharp. And don't be afraid to replace these. I see people sharpen them way too much. They'll sharpen them way back in here, and that's no good in my opinion. Hit some little thing and that'll snap off, and then it's a projectile. So all I do is set it on the rest here, and you can see that that's too high. You bring it down just until that touches. And what you can see here is you'll see the sparks coming over the top of the blade as you sharpen. So if you see sparks, then that means that you might be too low, and if you're not seeing sparks, you could be too high or maybe just right. So you want to kind of ride that line between seeing the sparks come over and not. I generally don't sharpen this side, however I will flatten it, and I'll just take that, and I don't run it this direction, but I'll just go like that just to flatten that, because as you sharpen and as you use the tool, the metal on the edge folds this way, And sometimes you'll hit a rock or something and that'll mushroom it, so there'll be bumps and stuff along here. That needs to be smooth. You don't want to bevel that, but it needs to be smooth and flat. So I'll start off with that. I'll just run that right across there, get a nice smooth flat surface, and then I'll turn it around and start to do this. And I'll just literally work it like this, back and forth. You don't want to get it hot. You want to do a pass or two, and then you want to check to see where you're grinding on here. Are you grinding on the tip? Are you grinding on the heel? Are you grinding on the center? You kind of want to grind on the center, then your angle is going to be right. If you're turning it blue, you're not moving fast enough. So you go real slow like this, and you can heat that blade up. You'll take the temper out of it and ruin it. So that's kind of the deal. I'll put my glasses on here, and I'll try and do one of these one-handed for you. This is a little cheap 3/4 horse 8-inch grinder, as you can see. I just got it screwed to a piece of wood, and I clamp it to the bench. I don't have a permanent home for it, so I just clamp it as I use it, because I really don't use it very often. Sharpening mower blades is 99% of what I do. And this side is a more fine stone, and that's not really what you want to use. Chip out of that, that's not good. This stone you might use for like sharpening drill bits and whatnot, or if you want to sharpen a knife or something like that. But you don't need a super fine finish on a mower blade. So here we go. These things, you'll see, tell you something about these motors, you'll see it, you'll hear it spool up. You don't see that bubble on here. I'll show you my drill press. You see a lot of motors. You see a lot of motors, they have that bubble on the back, or on, attached to the motor. That drill press has one too. Most motors do, really, because most motors will kind of start under load. And what that is a big capacitor. There's a big capacitor, and there's a start winding in here in the motor, or at least not in this one. That kind of gives it a kick and gets it moving really fast. These spool up slowly because they're an induction motor, and they have very little rolling resistance. They're not, connected to a belt that's connected to a thing. The load comes on it when you start grinding, and when you turn it on, you're not grinding right away. So they take a moment to spool up, and they take forever to spool down because they don't have a brake or anything. Just flatten the back. That's all I want to do. Well, I got it in that hand. I'll do the other side. Granted, this is not as smooth as it would be if I hang it onto it with both hands, because it vibrates a bit and whatnot. You see how you don't see sparks coming down the front? Now I'll tip it down in there. See the sparks coming across the front now? So that's that margin I mentioned. See, I'm grinding mostly on the tip, which is not too bad. It's a pretty good grind. And I think that's sufficient. I'm on the heel there, or kind of down the middle. I've always thought that if I was a young person and I lived in a city or a town, I'd hang a shingle out saying, "Sharp your mower blades for $5. You bring me your mower blades loose and bring them in and I'll sharpen them while you wait." Because, you know, you see how hard it is. It's not hard at all. You don't pay that much for these little grinders. And you could make a good little business out of that, I think, if you're a young person. And, you know, you can use your parents' garage and whatnot. Anyway, just an idea. So something I didn't mention either is with the sparks, and I know that's turning, I'll touch it, is you want to try to keep the spark trail in the center of your wheel as much as you can. Now, you do deviate. I'm just saying, don't linger. You watch where that spark trail is. If your spark trail is always over here, then you're going to misshape that wheel pretty fast. So try to keep it in the center as much as possible. You can kind of see that this wheel has a bit of a crown, mostly because I sharpen mostly mower blades, and I end up crowning that, and that's fine. If you get your wheel too far off, you can actually buy dressers that it's a tool that you start your grinder, you push it up against the grinder, and it'll flatten that face of that wheel. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish these, and we'll stick them back on there. All right, so grease zerk there. There's one here on this joint. Everything's greasy now. There's one there. A corresponding one on this joint there. And the grease zerk for the center spindle is right here. It's kind of a remote because it's under this gearbox. These appear to be the fill and check level screws for the gearbox. I removed this one, and the oil level is right up to that screw, which is perfect, absolutely perfect. And that kind of makes sense. I've had this deck a few years. I didn't buy it with the tractor. I bought it, I think, in 2015. I don't know how old it is. The guards and things you can see are gone. They were no good when I got it. I don't have kids around here, so I just run without. So it's I haven't ever seen any seal seepage or wetness anywhere, so there's no reason to believe that the oil level would be low. But you know, it's always nice to check, because who knows, maybe there was no oil to begin with, and then maybe somebody washed it before I got it and washed all of that seepage evidence off, but there's still no oil in. I'm told that that's an extremely expensive part. This is a really robust mower. This belt is starting to go, though. I think I have a new one. I bought new blades and new belt when I bought this mower, just in case. But you can see this belt is a fused V-belt. The bottom is starting to come off of there. This mower will not slip. It'll kill the tractor. If you run over a hump in the ground or something and ground it out, it'll actually stall the tractor before any of these spindles will slip. It's extremely robust mower. Okay, so the only thing left to do is to go out and put it on the tracker. There you go. There's my patented drive over deck. So this contraption mounts to the front of the tractor. That's what pulls the mower along. And then there's these arms here, right here, that hook in here. That gives you lift. And then you can see that drive shaft there. And I have to connect this end of the drive shaft. And the trick is that this drive shaft is keyed, so it only goes on there one way. And then there's a little spline right up there that drives it. So that's part of what makes it so robust. It's direct drive right off the hydrostat. And I don't think I can video this either. I've got to get right in under there with my arms. Okay, let's see what happens. Let me turn it on here. Oh, that's the tiller. So I have to select if I want rear PTO, both, or mid PTO. Let's do the mower. Oh, look at it goes. Well, I'd say that cuts just fine. It looks really good. I'm trying not to mow down too many dandelions. I'm going to cut all that dandelion that's seeded out over there, get the seeds dispersed, and then they'll come up with more dandelions next season. Okay, I'm going to mow for a little bit and then go and work bees. It is May the 31, 2023. The last day of May. Tomorrow begins June, and it's quite a hot day, and I can't overstate how hot it is, because I know there's a lot of viewers that live in hotter climates. I guess it's kind of what you get accustomed to, but it's actually pretty hot. That sun is really hot, and it may not reflect in the actual air temperature, because we live in a little bit of a northern zone here, but that doesn't diminish how much heating you get from that sun, on your face and on the equipment. Today is raise the seat on the tractor day, because you get on it later on and you get a warm behind, and if you're wearing shorts, then that's even worse. So you see I have my water bottle here too. That's required equipment today. I've been out here maybe an hour and a half, and I've drank half of that. That's 1.5 liters in all. Okay, I've been cleaning up a bit. I got the mower on the tractor, and so I moved a bunch of stuff and mowed the grass where the pallets were, etc. So it's always nice to clean up the apiary a bit. The grass in amongst the hives can go a little while yet. And you can see my wife there working away. She's just starting the work while I was cutting grass. So she's actually looking at a few that we had marked as, promising. Some of the more promising colonies. There's not very many of them, but there are a few. So I've been thinking lately, that if I'm not paying attention and we have any colonies grow up behind my back and then swarm, I'll feel pretty stupid because I've been having such a lackluster season so far. So I have to stay on top of that. And the brood that they're producing that is excess, I need to make use of that. I need to make, well, I'm done making splits for now, but I need to use that for boosting colonies, etc. There you see a few sitting here. These are 3. A really good friend. Again, one of those friends that really pulls through for you when you have a bit of a rocky season. And he came through and he said, "Hey, would what was it, 12? He said, "Would 12 nukes do you any good?" And I said, "Man, would it ever?" Because I still hadn't fulfilled my obligations to my buyers. So he said, "Well, Here's 12 nukes, and he's given me a really good price on them. I'm paying for them, but a really good price. So it's really going to average out, come out par with what the customer's paying me on those nukes. So that's just another real blessing. So that customer is supposed to come on Sunday and get those. And I'm supposed to get another 15 Friday night from a guy. I'm overpaying those a little bit, so I'm going to lose some money on those. But all in the interest of serving my customers who I've made commitments to. Commitments in my mind, you know. I don't know if it's normal the way I'm doing this, but it's just the way I choose to do business. Yeah, so I've got out some comb here. You see this skid sitting, I can't even see the screen. I think it's this one here. That's just 6 boxes. I brought out some nice clean honeycomb again. And this is call that the discard pile. That's just anything that I want to send back to the renderer in the honey house. And there's getting to be fewer and fewer of those as we go. So that's encouraging. But there's a lot of these colonies that still need to be culled. I don't know if I'm avoiding it just for my own sanity. It's kind of depressing. That's probably what it is. It's easier just to let them sit there. I guess it's easier to let them sit there and die themselves, and well, that's not nice either. However, a lot of these will be culled down and shaken out, and you know, there's really nothing in much of them, or many of them. Many of them don't have much inside. Some of them don't have laying queens, but most of them do. So anyway, I'm rambling. I'm tired and it's hot. It's the middle of the afternoon. I kind of been going all day. But I'll put my veil on and I'll go over and see what my wife is doing, and maybe help her assess some of these colonies, get some seconds put on. It's June the 1, 2023. And I started at a little project this morning that, you know, the reason for this project goes back to the flood of April 2022, and that is the refurbishment of my old apiary. I don't think I'm going to be using that apiary again, but I do want to fix it up. I want to fix the damage to the ground and ruts and mounds of dirt and all that kind of stuff. My wife suggested, I've already got it fenced, so why don't I put my garden there? That's a good idea, I think. However, what I thought I would do this morning, I thought, you know, I'm going to spend a couple hours, an hour or two maybe, tilling. I got the tiller on the tractor, so I'm going to till that up. But once I'm done tilling, I want to harrow it. I have some harrows, but I haven't touched them in 15 years, and they've been sitting in the bush. So the other day I dragged a couple sections of those harrows out, but I've got nothing to pull it with. As far as you need a harrow bar. If you're going to pull more than one section, you need a harrow bar that's going to pull both sections at once, kind of thing. And then there's a harrow bar in the bush where the harrows are. So I went searching for the harrow bar this morning, and I thought, you know, it's under a bunch of junk. It's buried in the ground too, and so I thought, yeah, I'm just going to get a length of chain, hook on the end of that thing, and drag it out of there with the tractor. Well, I did. Problem is, I hooked onto it and pulled it out of there for sure, but I couldn't see it in the ground. It was kind of buried, so I ended up hooking onto it in the middle instead of on the end, and I made a mess of it. So I gotta cut it now. I gotta cut it, take a little piece out of it, and then weld it back together before it's a usable harrow bar again. So, oh joy, more stuff to fix. It shouldn't really take that long, but it's one of those things you think, oh, why did that happen? You know, I could have just hooked onto it on the end, but I couldn't see it. So that's what I'm doing here. Yeah, so I'm no master fabricator or anything, and I'm just going to try and cut this. You see how it's deformed it all the way back to here. I'm going to start by sort of cutting it off here and here. I don't want to lose too much because that makes it too narrow to pull the harrows. You see how the harrows connect to these loops just with a piece of chain here and here, and then the next harrow sits here and here. So if it was bent over here, I could cut it off. See, it's been welded here already, and I'll probably cut it off there anyway, because I really only want to pull 2 sections of harrows. I'll decide that once I get it fixed, and maybe I'll pull 3. We'll see how wide it is. It's pretty wide, so I think are they 3 foot or 4 foot harrows or something? So 3 is 12 feet, and sometimes I'm trying to harrow some smaller areas. I've been harrowing with a 1 section of diamond harrow, which is really small, and it's hardly as wide as the tractor, not even as wide as the tractor. So I want to get some width on this thing, so cut it off, get my little trusty Milwaukee grinder, cutting wheel, safety glasses of course, and cut this off. So I was thinking to myself, I need a workbench that's like 8 feet wide, maybe 10. Well, guess what? Oh, we got a workbench, it's 10 feet wide. So I got that thing cut off. Of course, I need to kind of make them flat so they meet. But it's still oblong. I could go back here farther and get it round, or to where it's round. I just don't want to lose any more material. The chunk I lost is down here on the ground. And so there was a good 5 inches probably there. And I was thinking it'd be nice if I had a piece of pipe that was a little bit bigger than this slide over top. But I don't think I do. So what I'm going to do is I'll put this piece of wood under here and bash this with my sledgehammer, see if I can make a difference there. That one. Boy, that looks like that is 2 pieces of pipe on that side. I guess that's what this is. I guess there's 2 pieces of pipe. Piece of pipe inside here when he welded that, perhaps. Yeah, that's exactly it, because that ended right where it bent. Of course, much stronger here, so it wouldn't bend there. And as soon as that inner pipe ended, that's where it bent. So, all right, I'm gonna give this a bash and see what happens. I'm not pulling lots of weight, and if this doesn't work, then I could do it again. You get bigger pipe and splice it and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get this welded together, and maybe it'll work for what I'm doing. I still don't know if I want to do 3 sections or not. So if I don't want to do 3 sections, I need to cut it again. Okay. Oh, somebody's happy to be here. I'd say that's pretty darn good. I'm going to try to weld that. So a word on wheels. This is a cutting wheel. You see how thin it is? Some of them are not quite that thin. These things disintegrate pretty fast, but they make a nice small kerf. You don't lose much material, and they cut fast. And one thing you have to watch for is you have to keep them cutting. You can't let your grinder chatter at all. As soon as these things chatter, they just disintegrate, and you'll be getting another one. So they're not really appropriate for grinding. So I've switched to a grinding wheel. You can cut with a grinding wheel, but it takes you a long time because you're cutting a big swath out of there. So what I need to do here is I want to bevel these just a little on each side to give the welder somewhere to go in that. So I got to do that now. And again, sorry I don't have my tripod, so I can't really do action shots on this. My apologies to any of my buddies who are good at this kind of thing, because they're probably pulling their hair out. I had an idea here. Since there's a pipe inside this one, I thought I'll cut another inch or so off of that. It takes a bit of a light touch with the grinder. So you don't go through both. You go through the outside and don't go through both. And it looks like I did it. So I'm just going to bash this off of there with the hammer and I should be able to slide that in that. Well, maybe not. It's not even round, so we'll see. We'll see how well that works, and then I can prep this up and get some welding done here. Well, I beveled the end of that inner tube. I cleaned up this side inside with my file, and between me and my 8-pound sledge, the sucker went together. It's not round, but they're both bent kind of the same, so they fit. And the fact that they're not quite round assures alignment on my loops here. they're all the right way. It looks like rebar the guy used or something. But a little bit more cleanup here, and then I'm going to strike a weld on that. My little welder is not big enough for this kind of thing, but that's what I've got. And yeah, we'll see what happens. If it breaks again, then we'll just go from there. Well, the little welder did as best it could, and I did the best I could. And please don't laugh, and please be kind. I never said I pretended to be a good welder, and nobody's life will be in jeopardy with this repair. At worst, it'll just snap and we'll have to do something over again.